All right, welcome back. And remember, right about now, we're getting into matter sustainability and environment. And of course, today's topic is one that is very interesting and one that is very close to Kenyans and, of course, Africans at large. So we're talking about tackling textile waste. And with me in studio, I have Teresia Wairimu, the chair, Mitumba Consortium Association of Kenya. Welcome once again.
Thank you, thank you.
We've had this conversation before, but I'm glad that you're back.
Yes.
Now we can expand on it even further.
Yeah.
And of course, online joining us is Malvin Owusu, Executive Member, Ghana Youth Clothing Dealers Association. Hi, Marvin. How are you today?
Good evening. Thank you very much for having me.
Most welcome, and thank you for joining us all the way from Ghana. So we are going to be having this very interesting conversation. Now, remember, fashion waste from fast fashion brands and imported second-hand garments has really triggered this a bit of a dilemma, I would say. And this is because most of the clothes, it is the way in which they're handled, the way in which they're sorted, and of course disposed as well, which amounts to fashion waste. Now we'll be getting into that, but for those of you, the viewers who don't really understand the impact of mitumba in Kenya when it comes to our economy, when it comes to daily life. So maybe Teresia will start off by telling us how important it is to have the mitumba industry in the country.
Thank you so much for having me and also for having this conversation. To start with, mitumba employs over 2 million people in Kenya, and over 24 million people are our consumers.
Okay.
So many of them, they don't have another choice. They cannot buy new clothes simply because they are making below $2 a day. So these are people who consume them, who need them, and whose mitumba is a way of life or a livelihood. It's not luxury.
Yes.
It is not something that is in between. It is a need. So mitumba generates over 16 billion Kenya shillings to the exchequer.
Wow.
It pays a lot, millions of shillings to the city councils based on where they are sold, starting with the biggest market in Gikomba, all the way to Kisumu, Kebuye, all the way to Webuye, to Kakamega, so many markets. So generating a lot of income to the city councils, to the government, and also generating a decent livelihood to millions of Kenyans here in Kenya and also in Africa at large.
All right, thank you very much for that. We also have Malvin, who is from Ghana. And, Malvin, when it comes to the Used Clothing Dealers Association in Ghana, right? Maybe you can paint us a picture of how exactly it works there, because we have Teresia here, and she's mentioned how big of an industry it is in the country and what it really does for Kenyans at large in terms of employment, in terms of kind of giving them opportunities that they did not have. Maybe you can tell us the same about Ghana and what exactly the picture is and what the situation is when it comes to second-hand clothing in Ghana. Is it a popular thing there? Is it a popular industry?
Well, thank you very much once again and good evening. Quite similar to what Teresia said, in Ghana, second-hand clothing definitely is extremely huge. We have about 2.5 million individuals involved in the trade. If you put together importers, the market traders, the upcyclers, downcyclers, and also people who are even indirectly involved in the job, like your haulage companies, transport companies, etc. So there's a huge involvement in the second-hand clothing trade. It is also very important to note that there's a high level of green jobs which is provided for women, because a large chunk of the people or individuals involved in the trade are actually women. Additionally, there's also a high level of involvement for the youth. About 40% of the individuals involved in the trade are the youth. Another beautiful thing about the second-hand clothing trade is that it is a generational business. Every country, every economy wants continuity, and that is something that the second-hand clothing trade provides. So you might see a grandfather might have passed the trade on to a father might have passed it to the son or daughter, and then this trend continues. I am a personal testament of that. of that. My dad has been involved in the trade for 35 years now. My late mom, God bless her soul, was involved in the second-hand clothing trade. I have now been involved in the trade full-time for 8 years. And I know some years down the line, it's possible that my children will also be involved in the trade. Additionally, when we talk about taxes, on an annual basis, the data, verified data, shows that there is about $30 million generated annually in taxes for the Ghanaian government, which is extremely huge. And also, you have majority of the Ghanaian population wearing second-hand clothing. Over 90% of the Ghanaian population wear second-hand clothing. And also, to conclude, about 88% of the people involved in the second-hand clothing trade have that as their main source of income. So they are breadwinners. They are people who have that as their main source of livelihood. So it's extremely, extremely huge in Ghana.
All right, thank you very much for that, Malvin. Teresia, back here in Kenya, you know, a growing concern is the textile waste, right? So how exactly does the mitumba trade actually intersect with this concern, with this issue?
Yeah, first of all, I want to clarify that, number one, we have mitumba traders in Kenya.
Yes.
And the first people to bring mitumba are the importers. So the importers who are bringing in mitumba have guidelines that guides them into importing mitumba in Kenya. We have Kenya Bureau of Standard. Kenya Bureau of Standard has given us protocols of importation. You don't just wake up one morning and start importing anyhow or anything. We have guidelines. And some of these, we are regulated from source. For example, if you're buying from the UK, you need a government-appointed agency in UK to verify that what you are bringing into the country is according or has conformed according to the protocols of importation by KEBS. That is how now we bring them. So the narrative of waste, it is not there or anywhere. Because nobody is importing waste. Number one, any importer that is importing mitumba into the country is a business person first. Before we even talk about waste or mitumba, these are business people who are looking to make money. Nobody will pay $15,000 to the exchequer to bring in waste. Right. Not even at 10%. So whatever now we have come up, because we took the initiative as Mitumba Consortium Association and did the research. And the research has been verified that to have mitumba have about 2% waste. And this 2% waste is because the mitumba are sorted by human beings. So there is something we can call human error. Something can pass without somebody noticing that there was a hole on a dress or something. Right. So that's how now we came up with the 2%. But in the real sense, anybody who is importing mitumba is paying a lot of money, bringing mitumba, a 40-foot container, into the country. Number one is about $5,000 bringing a container from Europe to Kenya. That is shipping alone. Now coming to the taxes in Kenya is about $15,000. So this is a total of $20,000. So in the real sense, nobody in their right mind will import something that has waste in their container. That is number one. Number two, after now the owner or the buyer verifies or make sure that the container is profitable for themselves, then we have KEBS who regulate what we are bringing into the country. So we do not have a lot of waste in mitumba. The conversation should be around the textile waste, because even the new clothes that is coming into Kenya or being manufactured in Kenya will at one point be at the end of life. So when we want to have this discussion, we want to discuss it on the level of household waste, textile waste, because new or old, they will at some point be at the end of life. And looking at mitumba, these are people who are extending the life of garments. Instead of manufacturing a new t-shirt, it is easier for somebody to reuse because this is how we conserve our environment.
Yeah.
We protect our environment. Can you imagine Kenya is importing about 185,000 tons of mitumba per year? 185,000 tons per year. Can you imagine if today we start manufacturing 180,000 tons per year? What will it do to our environment?
Yeah.
Definitely, our environment, our earth is going to be polluted and in a very, very bad way. So mitumba is extending the life of garments. Okay. And this discussion, we should be talking to the manufacturers. Look at what the fast fashion are doing.
Yes.
Yeah, manufacturing clothes that cannot be worn, but cannot even support one life. We need to make sure that the manufacturers, people who are making garments that can support 2 to 3 lives.
Yep.
That is how we preserve our environment. That is how we make sure that our environment is in good condition.
All right.
So mitumba is not harming the environment.
Okay.
Mitumba is preserving the environment by supporting reuse. And reuse is the way to go.
Okay.
The world at large, even in Europe, they are projecting by 2030 that they will have 30% of the people buying mitumba or wearing mitumba. By 2030, they want it to be like 30%. Right now, Europe is at 5%. 5% are using mitumba. By 2030, they want it to be at 20%. They want it to be at 30%.
Right.
So if we are here in Africa, we have extended the life of garments. The first world, like Europe, they are also encouraging their people to reuse. So definitely we should encourage ourselves. The government should encourage mitumba traders to continue so that we can all embrace reuse because it is providing job opportunities in Kenya. And number 2, it is providing dignified clothing for our people. People who cannot afford 1,000 Kenya shillings trouser will buy 100 Kenya shilling trouser, and there will be no difference because somebody will buy a Levi, which is new, and another person will buy a mutumba, which is 100 bob.
Yeah.
And you will not tell the difference because both of them will be dignified.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you very much for that. Now, Malvin, what percentage of imported second-hand clothing typically, ends up as waste rather than being resold in Ghana? We have Therese here. She mentioned a few figures as well. So maybe you can also tell us what the situation is like in Ghana.
Empirical research and research that has been done shows that the textile waste, which comes out of second-hand clothing waste, is in the region of about 5%. We have independent research that has been done by the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration, popularly known as GIMPA in Ghana. There's an independent research that has done which shows that textile waste is in the level of 5%. And even with that, there is value in there because even when we are looking at it, when we are looking at downcycling of items, some of these can be repurposed, some of these can be repurposed by tailors, some of these can be used as mops, some of these can be used as in the line of works for mechanics who use it in the wiping of tires and bolts and all of that. Some can be used as fillers in mattresses and all of that. So it even shows that the 5%, there is some level of use in there. Not only that, the German aid known as GIZ in Ghana also has done its own independent research and shows that the level of waste is in and around the 5% that has been mentioned. Now, there's a popular figure that has been mentioned in the media, which is 40%, and that has no empirical evidence, and that is not backed by any data. Unfortunately, that has been purported so much in the media and has become what I call a zombie statistics, because something can be mentioned so many times and then can be approved as if it's the norm, but that is not the norm. And I'm glad that recently research has come out to show the real levels of textile waste. And like in every industry, I know that there are challenges. And I know that even though there are some levels of textile waste, be it 5%, be it 2%, like in Kenya, there are ways in which we can improve, whether the government is supporting with better waste management infrastructure. Because in developing countries, and not only in developing countries, in developed countries as well, everyone is trying to find better ways and means of managing their waste. Africa is no exception. We are all trying to find better ways of managing our waste. So the main issue has to do with management of waste in general, not managing of the second-hand clothing waste. It forms a part of the problem, but the research also shows that textile waste, and when I mention textile waste, it means second-hand clothing waste, first-hand clothing, local manufacturing, all that form of textile waste, the research shows is in the region of 2% as a composition of general waste. So it shows that textile waste as a composition of general waste is even on the low side. You have to talk about the likes of plastic and metals, paper, electronics before you come to textile. So it's very important that we put this in perspective so that when policies are being made, they are made based on the right data.
All right, thank you very much for that, Marvin. You know, you mentioned something very interesting, and I had a question to kind of just follow up with what you said. You said it's very important to actually know that, paint a picture of what exactly the real problem is, the real issue is, and what the real waste is. So when you talk about textiles in general, obviously that involves secondhand clothes as well. But what other kinds of textiles are there that actually are considered as waste?
So you have local manufacturing textiles.
Yeah.
So you have like the tailor offcuts as well. You have household waste as well, people who have bought it from first hand. So it's not just second-hand clothing waste. You have factory offcuts, manufacturing offcuts, and sometimes you go to the market as well, you know, during the likes of upcycling and downcycling, trying to repurpose garments. These also generate some level of waste. So there are all these forms of textile waste that constitute textile waste in general, because a lot of the time the narrative is shifted just to second-hand clothing waste. And as Teresia rightly said, you know, more or less we are like the firefighters because we are extending the lifespan of clothes. Don't forget, it takes up 2,700 liters of water just to make a pair of new t-shirts. That water alone is enough to sustain an individual's life for 3 years. So the people in the trade need to be motivated, need to be encouraged, and then the positivity of the trade really needs to go out there, because thrifting is not just in Ghana, for example, it's in Europe, and it's as Teresia brought about the data. There is going to be an increase in textile sustainability, textile circularity in Europe, and also it is very, very important to note that there cannot be any circular textile economy without the reuse of garments. It is not going to work. So if you have the likes of Ghana, if you have the likes of Kenya, who are heavily involved and are setting an example of how a textile circular economy should be, I think that we need to be encouraged to even do better. And we need to be applauded for the work and the trade that we are doing, because we are making a positive impact on the environment. And it's important to note.
All right, thank you so much. You've mentioned something very interesting, and I'd like to throw it back to you, Teresia. You know, when you talk about circular economy, when you talk about innovation, especially the existing initiatives that are there in the country, maybe you can take us through a few that you know of where, you know, we've had initiatives that upcycle, recycle, or even repurpose textile waste, especially from mitumba. Are there any such initiatives that are in place in Kenya?
Yeah. I want to say that not even going outside the market.
Okay.
The market itself, we have so many people who are doing a lot in terms of upcycling, downcycling of mitumba. There are people who are buying big T-shirts.
Yes.
And from the big T-shirts, they make a small tracksuit for a child. So they are doing a lot. We have tailors who are doing a lot in the market. We have people who are ironing those clothes. these are people who are, these are not big organizations, but these are individuals who found a purpose within the mitumba industry.
Okay.
They are getting their daily bread, their livelihood in the market and within the mitumba industry. So, and we also have many organizations. There are people who are coming into the market, they are buying for different purposes. Let's speak about curtains. There are people who are making very nice curtains out of the big textiles in the market. There are many people who are repurposing them. There are many people who are doing, they are making bags out of jeans. They buy those jeans, they make nice bags. They are being sold here in town. There are many people who are repurposing. Mitumba is a way of life for millions of people in the country. Be it a mitumba trader who is selling them, be it somebody who is repurposing them, be it somebody who is indirectly employed by this trade. It is something that has given many people livelihood.
Okay.
In Kenya is so many women, uneducated, people who don't have college degree or education, even high school education, people who only know the concept of buy and sell.
Yeah.
They have supported their families through that trade. They have supported their siblings through that trade. There are many university students waiting to be employed. They found something in the mitumba industry. And through that, they are making their livelihood there.
Okay.
Some of them waiting to be employed. And some of them, they ended up not looking for that job anymore because they found their niche there.
Yes.
Some are repurposing. Some are selling these clothes.
All right. Thank you so much for that. You know, basically, we have environmental activists in Ghana who had something to say. So I would like to play that. We have a few clips from Ghana that we'd like to play in just a moment. But before that, I'd like to take a short break. Remember, we'll be continuing this conversation. We have Malvin, who is tuned in from Accra, Ghana. We also have Teresia here in studio, the chair of Mitumba Consortium Association of Kenya. We will continue this conversation right after this short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, welcome back. And as we continue this conversation right here, right now, we're focusing on tackling textile waste. With me in studio, I have Teresia Wairimu, the chair of Mitumba Consortium Association of Kenya. And then we also have Malvin Owusu, executive member, Ghana Used Clothing Dealers Association. So we will continue having this conversation. And of course, Teresia is in studio. Now, Teresia, some people, of course, you know, we've seen this debate online a couple of times where the critics argue that Mitumba actually undermines the local textile manufacturing industry. How exactly do you respond to that claim?
I want to say that it is a false narrative.
Okay.
Mitumba does not undermine the local manufacturing. And if we come back to this country and look at our local manufacturing, what do we call local manufacturing? Because in Kenya, we do not even have our own textiles. So whoever is making clothes in Kenya, they are making through imported textiles. What they are using is imported, it's not locally made. So Mitumba traders, we are in support of reviving our own local textile. And reviving our own local textile means growing our own cotton, reviving our own ginneries, and therefore making our own locally made textiles. And if we do that, we will be sure to manufacture something that is cheaper for anybody in the country to wear. But when we import textiles from Turkey, from Bangladesh, from India, from China, that means not all Kenyans will be able to afford that. So Mitumba traders have not undermined in any way our local manufacturing. In fact, we are in support of reviving our own local manufacturing. And when we do that, we will allow Mitumba to be in the market and the new clothes that are locally produced to be in the market and allow them to compete, because both of them will be cheap. If a trouser will be costing 100 shillings and it is new, and an older one will cost 100 shillings, then the consumer will have power of choice. They will choose whatever they want. If they want the new, they will buy the new. If they want the old, they'll buy the old. So when we talk about local manufacturing, in Kenya, it is not existing. It is not there, because the textile that is making it is imported. The button that will be used to put into that shirt or dress is also imported. The needle that is making that dress is also imported. Everything is imported. So what they do in Kenya, they just assemble. So making it hard for a local Kenyan to consume that. They become very expensive. So right now, when we talk about our local industry, we need to rethink it. We need to go back to farming our own cotton. We need to go back to reviving our own ginneries and now producing our own locally made product. That is when we will proudly say, buy Kenya, build Kenya. But for now, anybody who is saying buy Kenya, build Kenya, there is nothing like that. Textiles, all of them are imported. Yeah.
So, Teresia, when we talk about the way forward, when we talk about solutions to reduce textile waste as a whole, not just Mitumba, all textile waste, what practical steps do you think can be taken immediately so that we're able to come up with a solution to reduce the textile waste, amount of textile waste we have in the country?
Yeah. Number one, I want to say that the future is circular. Buy better, use longer, repair more, and keep clothing in circulation. Kenya can grow local manufacturing and sustain Mitumba livelihoods at the same time. So at the end of the day, is good quality clothes being manufactured. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for that. We still have Malvin with us from Accra, Ghana. Malvin, there's something that I read online and I want you to comment on this. So secondhand clothes are called Obroni Wawu. I hope I said it right, which means dead white man's clothes. It's quite the term, I must say. Maybe you can tell us your thoughts on that. Do we still have Malvin with us?
I'm aware that whatever reason can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, so I was just saying that as has been a challenge for our trade, there's always been this negative connotation to our trade. What Oboniwewu means is that dead, white dead man's clothing. Unfortunately, when second-hand clothing trade started in the country, that's the terminology that was created. Ghana has a way of just naming the way in which they do everything that they do. For instance, even in my trade, they have different connotations and names that they call my suppliers. So they also have a way in which they termed what they call second-hand clothing and called it dead man's clothing. But let me just clarify this. It is definitely not clothing coming into the country by dead men. They are very much living people. just has to do with textile circularity. So no, the clothes that we are bringing into the country are not clothes that are from dead people. And I very much also remember during the time of COVID, there was this information that was going on that the clothes that are coming from China are from the Chinese people who have unfortunately passed away through COVID. All these is unfortunately false information. We don't buy clothes from dead people. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for clarifying that. You know, the UNEP says that a zero waste approach is actually key when it comes to the transition that is required to more circular approaches. Now, maybe you can tell me your thoughts on what exactly a zero approach looks like. I'll start off with you, Malvin, then we'll move to Teresia.
Great. I think I've asked this question myself, that can we ever get to a zero waste policy? I think I've asked this in several conversations.
Yeah.
And the answer that has been purported is actually, however, we can try and minimize zero waste or waste as much as possible, try and bring it to the bare minimum. So, I mean, everybody is working towards textile circularity and some form of circularity, because the times that we live in now has to do with high global warming, high carbon emissions, and all of that. And the second-hand clothing trade pays or does this fair share or its fair quota in trying to mitigate this risk through the extending of clothes, rather than people buying clothes from first hand. So in that aspect, we are very much in the core of textile circularity. That's why the likes of Ghana and Kenya are the core of this ecosystem, because through this textile circularity, textile sustainability, innovation, we can really be at the forefront that the likes of the other international partners or the likes of the globe can definitely emulate.
Yeah. Teresia, the same question to you.
Yes, I would want to say that KEBS have developed very good protocols of importation.
Okay.
So in Kenya and within the association, our biggest campaign is to follow the protocols of importation for also Kenya. We do not want to have a situation where we have mountains of waste.
Okay.
And there was reasons, some people were trying to suggest we have mountains of waste in Kenya. And as the chairperson, I looked into it, and there is nothing like mountains of waste of textiles in Kenya. So making sure that what we bring into the country is good quality, resellable, and reusable. Okay. That is our approach, making sure that we are all competitive, and competitive means we bring the best quality, and the best man in the market will always win.
All right, well said. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so we have some views from environmental activists in Ghana, and I'd like to play that just so both of you can, you know, get a look and feel of exactly what they think, what they feel, and then maybe you can comment on that as well. So I'd like to play that right about now.
We say sometimes we clean here all. They clean here all doing it before. Sometimes if we go fishing, we get small fish. But know be the other thing, if you never clean here, if you go fishing, we never get any fish. No, not but maybe buy fuel like 1,000 or 1,500. When you go fish, you never get any fish. So they worry us serious.
We need to encourage the upcycling, and we need to help the upcycling processes, because sometimes when the waste are in, we go for it and we brand it as a normal cloth again, which comes in a nice look. So it reduces the waste bin or the waste products surrounding us. And also, I think they should stop sending us the waste product or mixing the damages one, the selective ones, which cannot be buy or sell.
Fast fashion has currently been one of the major contributors to the rise of environmental crisis in Accra in recent times. It dirties our shores. Our shores are not attractive at all. Secondly, it ends up affecting marine life, because marine life, that is the fishes and other things, other creatures, fish creatures, end up eating or feeding on them, which cause their health, and also it impacts livelihood. One policy I would actually advocate for is the producer's responsibility, This is when the people that produces or brands outside Ghana, Africa, European countries, whatever brand, whoever you are, wherever you are, you will take action or responsibility of the life end of your products. This is something that should be encouraged so that producers or brands will be able to take care of their waste that ends up in our drainages, especially in African countries. We have to push for that so that they will be able to give out some funding to people like in African countries, because most of these brands end up in the African countries and the African beaches, so that this funding will be able to take care of the end-of-life products that they produce. One action that I would also push for is actually the implementers policy. This shouldn't be like we have just the policies there. It should be implemented. Government should be able to make sure that they implement these policies when they are passed. They should hold producers responsible.
All right. Now, of course, that is from Ghana. Malvin, what are your thoughts on that? The first person that was in that particular conversation and the video we played, he was complaining about not being able to get fish. He's a fisherman, and he says that he's struggling. He is really feeling the impact of textile waste. What exactly would you like to say to that, Malvin?
Okay, thank you very much. So I'd just like to have a few points here. I think it's very important to note that since the inception of fast fashion, it is true that the quality of clothing has gone down through overproduction and overconsumption. However, there is a key factor which Teresia touched on, that whatever is brought into the country needs to be of good quality and needs to be affordable. Mm-hmm. These two metrics need to work hand in hand for the second-hand clothing ecosystem in Ghana to work. One cannot work and leave the other. So as much as possible, everything or stuff that are brought into the country, these two metrics need to go hand in hand. It is true that it is human beings who are doing the sorting and grading and all of that. Maybe with the inception of AI, there can be maybe robots doing sorting that can be zero waste or zero stain items, zero torn items in the clothing aspect. But now we need to allow for that kind of human error that goes into the bills. But it also needs to be put in context, because it's not a 40% that has sometimes been purported, but it's in the region of about 5%. One of the things, and it's very, very important to know that sometimes when you go to these beaches, it is not just textile waste that is there. Actually, a lot of the time you go, a lot of them are plastics. So yes, it is true that some of these plastics and some of these wastes are choking the beaches and all of that. That is why it is important that waste management infrastructure or the right funding can be brought towards waste management infrastructure. In that way, it can help to resolve and try and mitigate the risk of waste in general, because it is true that we don't have the right and strong infrastructure for waste at the moment. But once with government support, and to be honest, everything has to do with funding. So with the right funding, with the right support from government, with the right support from the reliable partners, we can work towards that aspect as well. Lastly, I'd also like to say, because the lady touched upon EPR and all of that, yes, it is true that manufacturers need to be either incentivized, or EPR needs to be put in place so that the producers of garments are held responsible for the end cycle of clothing. Because as has been mentioned, every clothing item, whether first-hand, whether second-hand clothing, whether locally produced, has its end cycle. And because of these fast fashion brands, maybe EPR or eco-modulation can be implemented just so that brands are also held accountable for where the textiles end up. Because at the end of the day, everything or the manufacturing of clothing on a large scale starts from them. So therefore, they also need to have some form of accountability, and it can come through either EPR fees, it can come through eco design, it can come through eco modulation, or somewhere along these lines. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that clarification, Malvin. Would like to move to you, Teresia. Now, last year, I think about if I'm not wrong, it was May or April, there was some conversations where the government was actually, thinking about banning mitumba altogether. Now, the reason behind this is because of the increased tariffs that were imposed by the US. What exactly do you have to say on this regarding what happened and, of course, the conversations that were there? Obviously, that's not the case anymore. But the future of mitumba, what do you think it will be in the next 10 years?
Number one, we were also shocked to see the tariffs that were imposed by the new government in the United States. And everybody was anxious. We were waiting. We have been waiting for 2025, the renewal of the AGOA agreement. The AGOA agreement allowed trade between countries, especially Kenya and the United States. And of course, everybody was anxious.
Yes.
But I want to clarify that it was not because of mitumba that the tariffs were imposed. Those are government-to-government issues. We were not involved in that. And number two, I want to say it's easy for people to say that mitumba is harming the economy or mitumba is harming our local textile industry. But I want to say that mitumba is a need in this country because we have over 20 million people who are earning below $2 a day. And these people need to be dignified. They need to have a livelihood. Mitumba is also employing over 2 million people who are directly employed by this trade. These people have no other source of income. Some of them are not even educated. They don't have a college education that if mitumba is banned, they will go to another employment. This is their only way of life. So when we talk about mitumba in the country, and we talk about such discussions about banning mitumba is risking the livelihoods of over 2 million people and risking the livelihood of over 24 million people who are consumers of mitumba. In the 80s, when I was a small girl, I used to see people walking with the patches or clothes that were tattered or torn. But because of mitumba, everybody is dignified. People walk into their offices very smart. Some are earning very little money, but because of mitumba, they are dignified. So today, I would want to say anybody who is talking about banning the mitumba industry is talking about destroying livelihoods of millions of Kenyans who are dependent on this trade. So when we talk about revival of textile industry, we are not talking of banning mitumba so that we can revive the local textile industry. Because if you do that, you'll be giving in one hand and taking from the other hand.
Right.
So the two trades should coexist. The consumer should be given power of choice. They should choose which ones to buy and which ones not to buy.
Okay.
The consumer should have that power of choice. Coming back to the video that we watched in Ghana, I think there are people who are determined to destroy the good image of mitumba. Mitumba, what is doing, many people have focused so much into the waste.
Yeah.
They are not focusing into the extending of lives of garments. We are people who are promoting circularity in the world. We are supporting circularity. We are getting clothes from the United States. We are getting clothes from Europe. We are getting clothes from Australia, from Britain, from so many countries. And we are extending lives of garments.
Absolutely.
That means in Kenya, we are promoting these clothes and our people are wearing these clothes. In Ghana, it is in the public domain. There is an NGO there called the OR Foundation. These people, they have come up with the narratives that mitumba is harming the environment. We have documents in Europe where they have presented them. And they have also, that's an NGO.
Yeah.
They have received a lot of money from Shein. Shein is a giant manufacturer of fast fashion.
Absolutely, yeah.
So if we see videos coming out from Ghana and from the OR Foundation, these are people who want to promote fast fashion and destroy mitumba. So let's be sincere to ourselves.
Okay.
What is the agenda What is their agenda?
Okay.
Why are these videos, so many of them, they are coming out from Ghana? All our foundation, they are based in Ghana. So all these narratives are coming from Ghana, and we want everybody to be smart. Why would we destroy a trade that is promoting circularity? The whole world is talking about circular economy.
Yes.
So now this is circular economy. We are promoting circularity in textiles. We don't want to be manufacturing clothes every now and then. We want to promote circularity. What we have can be prolonged, can be worn for longer. In Africa, we have that. We have that.
Yeah.
We hand over clothes to people who are behind us. If you are the bigger, you are the firstborn, your clothes, what was bought, can be worn by everybody who is coming after
Absolutely.
you. So now we are promoting circularity,
Okay.
and we should be supported for that. There are many people who are rushing to get their hands on EPR money, but this EPR money should not come and destroy our trade.
Yeah.
Everybody is trying to get their hands on that money. But when they are getting their hands on that money, the EPR fees, they should also consider that mitumba is a livelihood to millions and millions of people in Africa.
All
So
right.
it should not destroy that.
Okay, thank you so much. We really do appreciate your comments and, of course, this very insightful conversation. Malvin, before we wrap up with you, we'd like you to give a parting shot as well and just tell us, about the second-hand trade that is currently ongoing in Ghana and, of course, the conflict that a lot of people, Ghanaians especially, think that second-hand clothing brings more damage than good. So maybe you can clarify that as we wrap up the interview.
Sure. Thank you very much. I just want to touch base a little bit on the whole second-hand clothing and local manufacturing as well. I'm sure Teresa might have touched on all of it. But similarly as well, in every industry, there needs to be healthy competition. It's not just in textiles, it's in every industry. So there needs to be a healthy competition between second-hand clothing and local manufacturing, which gives consumer the choice because consumers have the power. Secondly, it is also very important to know that second-hand clothing does not hamper the local manufacturing. The main challenge of local manufacturing has to do with the high cost of inputs, high cost of energy, high cost of utilities, which makes it extremely expensive when you are manufacturing garments locally. So it has nothing to do with second-hand clothing trade. It has to do with the cost that has to do with local manufacturing. The third thing is that as I speak here in Ghana, the Ghana Used Clothing Dealers Association is having discussions with one of the largest local textile manufacturers in Ghana, known as the Akosombo Textiles. And we are trying to go into this partnership with them, whereby if there are any garments by consumers, let's say in Cantonment, which is the largest market in second-hand clothing in Ghana, if there for any reason there are garments that cannot be reused, that cannot be worn, that has more or less reached its end of life, we are going to collect all these clothing items and take it to Akosombo Textiles because they are going to use it as feedstock for their line of business because they need these feedstock as well. So that is a great partnership. The interesting thing though is that it has been extremely difficult for us to provide them with feedstock because the levels of textile waste is extremely low. So it goes to buttress the point that there is nothing like 40% waste, and objectively speaking, there is no business person that is going to bring clothes into the country or goods into the country and you have 40% of your stock being defective. You're not going to make any money, you're going to run losses, and it just objectively is not going to work. There's no business model that supports that. So when the like of these activists and NGO, and Teresia mentions, which is the All Foundation, go about saying that 40% is waste, it baffles me. And I'm just glad that now we have independent research that comes to show in Ghana, that comes to show in Kenya, that comes to show in other countries as well, the true levels of waste. And I think these conversations are indeed very important because it helps to throw light on what really are the issues in the trade. And as I've mentioned, one of the main issues in the trade and in the country has to do with waste management infrastructure. once we're able to get that resolved, a lot of these issues are going to go away.
All right, thank you very much. And of course, with that, it's time to close this conversation. And I'd really like to thank both of you for being a very important part of this discussion. And I hope that we can have many more as we continue to demystify the second-hand trade and, of course, mitumba trade in Kenya, the second-hand clothing business in Ghana as well. Very criticized, I must say. But at the same time, it does, I believe, after hearing your comments, I have to say I'm pretty much convinced. I'm 70% there. We still have a lot of 30% to go. But maybe we can also hear the other side. You know, environmental activists could also come here and we can also have that discussion with them. It's quite healthy to also hear the other side of the story. So we could do that at a later time. But once again, thank you so much for being here. Of course, we have been talking to Malvin Osu, who is from Ghana, the executive member, Ghana Used Clothing Dealers Association, and Teresia Wairimu, chair for Mitumba Consortium Association of Kenya. Once again, asante sana. Thank you so much. And yes, Happy New Year.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. With that, it's time for us now to bring to you a few stories on what's happening in the country when it comes to all things environment. So for that, it's time for Green Fix. Now, our first story tonight, conservation efforts to save the critically endangered mountain bongo have received a major boost following the birth of the 100th calf at the Mount Kenya Wildlife Conservancy. The milestone marks over 2 decades of coordinated breeding, research and habitat restoration in partnership with the Kenya Wildlife Service, once widespread across the Mount Kenya ecosystem. The species was pushed to the brink of extinction by habitat loss and poaching. Conservationists say the achievement raises hopes of reintroducing a self-sustaining population into the wild. Moving on, environment, CS Deborah Barasa has commissioned Kinale Tree Nursery, where Kenya Forest Services will grow more than 600,000 tree seedlings in a span of 3 months. Speaking in Larry during commissioning tour in Kinale Forest, Barasa said the campaign for planting 1 million seedlings in 3 months and 1 billion trees in a year will be rekindled by 300 forests managed by KFS to achieve presidential campaign for planting the 15 billion trees. Community forest groups have called upon the ministry to involve them in continuing the campaign in achieving the 15 billion trees afforestation campaign in the country.
So we have surpassed the 1 billion mark, so we are progressing well, but the bottleneck was the seedling production. And that is why in this year, in the 300 forest stations with tree nurseries, we want more than 2 million seedlings being produced. And that's why we are saying, I've taken it up on myself to ensure that we are going round assessing the capacity. We have given instructions, clear instructions to CCF, to the Principal Secretary and the team to ensure that we are producing 2 million seedlings, even as we look towards working together with. And we are happy to report that we are seeing seedlings coming out. We are seeing the growth of seedlings from the year of 1 to 3 years, and there's really much emphasis on that. And also assessing, we are having digital platforms as a ministry. We are looking at satellite imaging so that we are monitoring, we are not cutting more than what we are planting.
Na sasa wakipanda yao hawana haja na hii, kwa maana wana yao. Lakini sasa na sisi tunaweza kupenda wakiuza yao na sisi watushirikishe, hata kama ni lori moja kana 2, na sisi tunapata kitu kidogo cha kujisaidia.
Majina yako?
Mary Njeri.
Kama tunaendelea na kukusa miti, tupate wateja wa kutununulia, na serikali ikipata nafasi ikaja ikatushukulia ile miti tunaoteza hapa kwa nasari.
And moving on, the White House has issued a presidential memorandum noting that United States will withdraw from 31 UN bodies and 35 non-UN bodies. Among the global organizations that the US is expected to withdraw from include UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, that's UNFCCC. Key to note is that UNFCCC, which was adopted in 1992, currently has 198 parties, and it is the bedrock global treaty to tackle climate change. The other non-UN bodies which US will be withdrawing from are the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is the leading global scientific body studying climate change, the International Energy Forum, International Renewable Energy Agency, the Renewable Energy Policy